Hi everyone. So today we'll see how we can create our own custom use state hook from scratch. So I will show you step by step how you can come up with the logic for creating your own use state hook. And we will also create a small counter application using our own use state hook. So let's see how we can create it. Okay, to start with, I've created a folder called hooks, and inside this I will create a new file called useMyState.js. And inside this I will say export const use my state. That will be a function, right? And this function will take an initial value, just like we do in use state. So if I just quickly show you, const set count is equal to use state. So we pass some initial value to it, right? Some numeric value or a string value, some sort of value we provide. So for that only we are taking this initial value. Okay. Inside this function, what I will do, I will assign this initial value to a state variable. So that state variable we will create here. I will call it let state. Okay. And inside this function, like whenever this function will be called, I will initialize this state variable with this initial value, whatever we are passing to our custom use state, right? And also, we get a setter function with use state to update the state. So for that, we can create something like const set state is equal to new value and state is equal to new value. For now, this set state, we are assuming it to work like this, like we do in set count, like set count 1, right? Or set count any value. But we also have functionality wherein we can do something like this. We can take the previous state and update it. So in that case, we are basically passing it a function, right? So this is all a function that we are passing to this setter function. So that also we need to take care of. And I will just say return an array in which I will first pass the state and then the set state. Okay. So this is very basic and very simple till now. We have just assigned the initial value to our state variable. We have created a simple function that will take the new value and update the state with that new value. And we are returning an array inside which we are having our state and a setter function, just like we have in useState. So if I just use it inside my app, so how would it look like? Let's see. So this is my app. What I can say is I can say const count comma set count is equal to use my state, and I will pass an initial value of 0, right? So I will be getting count and set count. So let's see if this is working till now. We will proceed step by step. So first, let's see if we are getting the count value correctly or not. So as you can see, we are getting 0. Okay, let's see if this set count is working or not. So what I'll do is I'll quickly introduce a fragment here. I will move this code inside this fragment. And apart from this count, I will introduce a button that will say increment, right? And upon clicking this button, we want it to increment. So I will say on click. So I will say set count as 10. So upon clicking this, we want to increment it by 10, right? The value by 10. So let's see if this works or not. If I click on increment, so this will not work. Why? Because you see, the function is working correctly. The function is going there, taking the value 10, assigning to state. But the thing is, we are not able to re-render forcefully, right? So even if the value is updated, we are unable to see the updated value on the screen. So the question is how we can forcefully re-render our UI. So there are a few hacks that we can use. So I will be using another hook that is provided by React, that is the use reducer hook. So like there are multiple ways we can achieve this thing like forceful re-rendering, but I will be going with use reducer because it is sort of a simple and a quick way to achieve that. So what I'll do, I'll say const re-render is equal to use reducer. This is just a like dummy thing that we are doing, just so that we can re-render the UI. I will explain it to you. Don't worry if you don't understand what I did there. I will explain it. But first, let's check if this is working or not. Let me just refresh. So if I click on increment, this will not work because every time I am clicking this button, this is triggering the re-render function. And once we are re-rendering, so this useState is getting called again with the initial value. And this initial value is again being assigned to this state. So this is a bug. So for that, what we can do is we can check if state is undefined, means there is nothing in the state initially, then only I will assign an initial value. Otherwise, I won't do anything, right? So now we can check. If I go back, refresh, click on increment, you see, we are getting 10, right? So we are done till here. Well, let me just quickly explain you what this thing does. So if you study about useReducer hook, so just like if we have useState, so useState allows us to create a variable and a set a function for that variable. But useReducer, what it does is the first argument here is the state, basically the value of the state, and then there is a dispatch function that it gives us, and it takes a reducer and the initial value. So the 0 that I have passed here is the initial value, and there is one callback function that is the reducer function, which will update the state and that will get reflected here, right? So we use dispatch to dispatch certain actions, and based on those actions, useReducer hook will call this callback function and check whatever action we have performed and update the state accordingly. So that's how useReducer works. So you can check more about useReducer online and you can study about that definitely. Okay, so instead of like directly updating the state here, what if I give a handler here like handle increment like we usually do. And if I create this handler here, const handle increment is equal to, and inside this what I'll do, I'll say set count. I will take the previous value of count and I will return the previous value plus 10. So my state will be updated. Okay, this time I'll say 100. So my current state 0 will be incremented with 100 upon clicking this, right? So if we test it now, refresh it, click on increment, this will not work, because what we are doing here is we are like passing a function to this setter function, and here like this new value, instead of a primitive value, this is a function this time, and we are trying to assign it to the state. So that is an issue. To prevent that, what we can do is we can check if the type of new value is a function. In that case, we will call this function with the current state. Else, we will do what we were doing earlier. And finally, we will re-render. So in this case, if we are passing a function like this, that this is a callback function, so this will be executed taking the current state. If you see here, whenever we write like this, what we are doing, we are just basically giving it a function with a previous state that we had, right? So that's what we are doing here. Okay, so I forgot to assign it to the state here. Whatever new value we are getting, we have to eventually assign it to the state so that it gets updated. If I go to Chrome, if I click on increment, so you see we are getting 100. So function is also getting executed correctly. Okay, so what I did now, I incremented it by 1 only instead of 100. And if we see our app, we can see clicking on increment will increment it. But there is a problem. If I create another variable using useState, let's say time, set time is equal to use my state, and this time I give it 100 again, right? So I will just label it as count. and this one as time. And if you see, in spite of this time being a different variable, if I click on increment, this is also getting affected. This should not happen, right? Generally, we use useState to create separate variables. Basically, those are independent of each other. So to fix this, instead of creating state like this, what we can do is we can say something like const state is equal to use ref. That will take the initial value. Instead of checking directly for state, we need to check for the current. So we are setting state.current everywhere. So state.current, and we have to also set this. Now if you see, I click on increment, so only that count variable is being affected because we are using state.current everywhere, basically a use ref we are using. And here also we are just incrementing count, that's why count is getting incremented. So why this wasn't working earlier was because the state variable that we were creating here, like this was being shared, like this was sort of a global variable that was being created, and it was being shared across like different instances that we were creating like this. So that state variable was being shared across these. So creating that state variable using useRef allows us to create a new instance of useRef each time we call this useMyState hook. So I guess now it's clear. So this is how you can create a basic implementation of useState, and you can create your own useState like this. I hope you enjoyed watching this. Thanks a lot.